Hi everyone, my name is DJ, and today I want to introduce you to Ghostwriter for Anki, a Chrome extension that helps you build high-quality flashcards with AI assistance and sends them straight into Anki. I built Ghostwriter for one very simple reason, which is that I had way too many tabs open, and all of them contained vitally important information that I wanted to internalize, but I had no good pipeline for getting information from the web into Anki, and that's where Ghostwriter comes in. So today I want to show you some of the key features of the extension. I want to show you how to get started and get set up, and I want to show you how I've been using it over the last couple of months. So let's dive right into it. Okay, so there are three things that you're going to need to do to get started once you've installed the extension. The first and most important thing is to open the extensions page in Chrome or Brave or whatever you're using. You can just do that from the three dots menu, go manage extensions, and then you're going to want to open the keyboard shortcuts and set a keyboard shortcut for Open Ghostwriter for Anki Overlay. Now I tend to have this set to Command-Shift-F, F for flashcards, just makes the most sense to me, but you can set it to whatever you want, of course. The next thing you're going to want to do is make sure that you have Anki open. If Anki's not open, then the extension's not going to be able to connect. It talks to Anki using AnkiConnect, so you're going to need to make sure that in your add-ons in Anki, you have AnkiConnect installed. And if you don't, it's really easy to install it. Just go to Get Add-ons and add AnkiConnect in there. The third thing that you're going to want to do is go to some web page, use your shortcut to open up the overlay, and click Options. Now, in Options, you're going to be able to enter your API key for your AI provider of choice. Now, I have three AI providers set up. Most of you would be familiar with OpenAI and Google Gemini. Ultimate AI is just an aggregation service to AI that I use, but most people will probably want to use Google Gemini. And you're going to want to go over to Google Gemini. This is just aistudio.google.com, and you can set up a free account here and get a free API key. And honestly, the rate limits on free accounts are relatively good. So once you've got that, you can just copy your API key, go back over to the options page, pop it in here, and hit save, and then you're good to go. So once you've done that, one other thing you can do just as a sanity check is scroll down to the bottom where it says connection check and test that AnkiConnect is working, and then you're definitely good to go. Okay, so let's get into using the extension. So the first thing I want to show you is if you hit Command-Shift-L, it's going to open the side panel version of the extension. And some people might prefer the side panel. I prefer the overlay, but you can use either. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Command-Shift-L again to toggle that off. And then I'm going to press Command-Shift-F to open the overlay. So here's the overlay. Now, the first thing that you'll see here is that the deck and the note type are pre-populated based on your decks and note types in Anki. If you're not seeing this, it's probably because Anki is closed. So if you go ahead and open Anki, these should pre-populate. You might need to refresh the web page first. Okay, the note type here is set to basic Ghostwriter. There's also a closed Ghostwriter type. These are two custom note types that I built because the Ghostwriter extension exports a source field and a context field that I've found to be particularly helpful, but those fields are not in the standard note types. And so if you use the standard note types, which you can do, you just won't get the benefit of those fields. So I'd recommend using the basic Ghostwriter type. I'll show you in a second what this looks like. There's a quick options menu, which you might come back to, and then of course there's a front and back of card field for editing. You can also resize the window if you want, make it a bit bigger or smaller. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and create a flashcard. So here's an article from Anthropic tracing attention computation through feature interactions. Let's say I go down to the first paragraph here and I read transformer-based language models involve two main kinds of computations, multi-layer, perceptron, and attention layers. Okay, so there are two main kinds of computation, MLP and attention layers. Let's say that's something that I want to remember. I'm going to just go ahead and select this text. I'm going to press Command-Shift-F, and then I'm going to start typing what are the two, and I'm going to stop there because this is the start of the question that I want. And now I'm going to make a Copilot call. This is like the Ghostwriter feature. So I'm going to hit Command-Shift-X. It's going to call Gemini. Okay, great. Two main computations in transformer models, and it fills in the answer multi-layer perceptron and attention layer. So I go ahead and hit tab. It's going to auto-fill that. I'm happy with that as is. And then I'm going to hit Command-Shift-A to add that to Anki. Okay, and now we're going to see if we go over here and refresh this. Okay, what are the two main computations in transformer models? We've got the card here. We've also got a context field. So here it's just pulling the context normally from the page metadata. And it's got a source field, which is telling us what web page we read this on. So this is linking to this exact source page that we've got in our web browser. The other helpful thing here is that it's automatically adding tags. So it's using the context from the flashcard and from the web page, and it's saying, oh, this is about artificial intelligence, about attention, computer science, and so on. So you don't have to worry about adding tags anymore, which is one of those annoying things that you have to do. So there you go. That's the basic use of Copilot. The next thing I want to show you is fully AI generated flashcards. But actually, before we do that, one other thing I'll mention is if you don't have anything selected, then what's going to happen is that the extension is going to look for whether you have something in your clipboard. So I can do something like this. If I re-highlight this, that's more than I wanted, and I copy it, and then I unselect and I open the overlay, it's going to use, if I do the same thing, what are the two? It's going to use what's in the clipboard to answer the question. So it's got two main computations in transform models. It's filled in the thing that was in the clipboard here as the page selection. And so that's just another handy thing. Like sometimes you're going to copy something on one web page. You want to quickly make a flashcard about it. Just open up a web browser, don't select anything, and you're good to go. Okay, let's move on to fully AI generated flashcards. Okay, so one thing that happens very often for me is that there are cards that I tend to make over and over again. So things like definition cards or cards where I'm trying to remember the name of a research paper or something like that. And so I have a bunch of templates built in, which you can customize and you can create your own templates. But let me just show you kind of how it works. So let's say I'm reading this first sentence. Transformer-based language models involve two kinds of computation, multi-layer perceptron. And I go, okay, perceptron, that's an interesting word that maybe I haven't seen before. I wonder what that means. And I go ahead and I say define perceptron. Okay, a computer model or computerized machine device to represent or simulate the ability of the brain to recognize and discriminate. Cool, all right. So I'm just going to highlight this and I'm going to hit Command-Shift-F and then I'm going to hit Command-Shift-G. And this is going to say AI draft from template, and I'm going to choose a template. Here I have a definition template, and I'm going to go ahead and hit generate. Okay, then it's going to take a second. It's going to think about what the definition is. Okay, and it's generated two cards. The two cards it's generated are define perceptron, and then it's got the definition on the back. And the second one is the definition, and then it wants the name, the word that defines that. So this is something called triage mode, and this links in with the custom GPT that I've got, which I'll talk about elsewhere. But here you'll notice there are two pending cards, and all I have to do to accept or reject this card is just hit A for accept or R for reject. I can also scroll through them with forward and backwards. This is helpful if you're making like 10 cards and you want to quickly triage them. That was kind of the point of this, is that if I have cards in bulk, I want a way of deciding which ones I want to keep and chuck very quickly and to be able to edit them quickly, which you can't do in Anki. I mean, you can do it in a spreadsheet, you can import it, there are other ways you can do it. This is a user-friendly way of doing it. So let's say, actually, I really don't want this, this reversed card. I'm going to reject that. And now if I scroll down here in the Q/outbox, I've got this one card, define perceptron, and it's got the definition on the back. Now that definition is a little bit dense. This isn't a great card, but just bear with me. So let's say I can now send that to Anki. It's disappeared, and sure enough, it'll be over in Anki with tags and source and everything else. So that's helpful sometimes. Fully AI generated flashcards, are useful in that you don't have to do anything, but I prefer to have a bit of control, which is why I really like the Copilot feature. Okay, let me show you a little bit about the options menu, and then we'll see the knowledge graph too, and that might be enough for this video. Okay, so what's actually in the options menu here? Firstly, you've got your provider choice, which we already talked about. If you come down here, you can turn Copilot on or off. You can also make Copilot run the way that it does in, for example, Visual Studio Code by default, which is that it's sort of always on when you turn it on. So as soon as you start typing, it starts suggesting. I have it set normally to manual Copilot only, which just means that I have to hit Command-Shift-X to get Copilot to give me a suggestion. There is a mobile-friendly version of this extension which you can install using Edge Canary on mobile, which supports extensions. So that's one thing to keep in mind. And it's sort of it's mobile friendly. You know, the UI is much nicer. Um, well, it's optimized for mobile. What else have we got? So there are prompts here, system prompts that you can edit. These are the prompts that actually go into that they get sent to the AI to generate the cards. So you can fiddle with these. I fiddled with them a lot and I'm pretty happy with the results. So I wouldn't recommend fiddling with them, but you know, I wanted to make this as customizable as possible. So go for it. These are the AI templates that you can edit, and you can add your own templates. You can opt not to show things like the context and source field on the overlay if you don't like to see that. I have another notes field here, which you can play with too. You can change the add to Anki shortcut. I like Command-Shift-A, but you know, use whatever you like. I have auto append Ghostwriter to every card just so I know which ones came from Ghostwriter. This is just the clipboard helper. So if there's nothing selected on the screen, then it automatically falls back to the clipboard. And then there's just some information here. So there's a whole bunch of settings here that you can play with. But you know, I have all the defaults set to kind of what I've found works quite well. So yeah. All right, let me show you one more thing before we wrap this up. Okay, so one other thing I want to show you quickly is support for MathJax preview. So I make a lot of cards about math. If you make cards about math, you might find this helpful. So let's say I want to internalize this piece of information that any complex function can be separated into real and imaginary parts. If you just highlight this text, it's not going to pick up the math that's behind these little nice looking displayed equations. So I tend to use Mathpix to grab this and it'll copy it directly to my clipboard. Okay, so that's done. I'm not sure how much of that you can see, but it's copied that to my clipboard. And now if I open up the flashcard generator and I say, you know, how can one separate, and then I make a Copilot call, complex functions into their real and imaginary parts. Right, here we go. So it's using proper math here. When it exports that to Anki, it's going to do it correctly. So these are going to get converted to these kinds of brackets rather than dollar signs. And if you hit Command-Shift+S, it will show you what this looks like in rendered MathJax. So, you know, if you want to make sure that you haven't messed up, you know, an equation that you've typed or something like that, this is how you do it. You hit Command-Shift+S, you know, Command-Shift+S on here. If I click off and I hit Command-Shift+S, it'll preview both of these. So that's just another handy thing to keep in mind. All right, to wrap things up, let's have a look at the knowledge graph. Okay, so the last feature that I want to show you, which is by far the most experimental, is the graph dashboard. So if you open up the overlay and hit graph dashboard, it's going to open up a graph of all of your cards. Now, the first time you open this up, this probably isn't going to show up because you're going to need to hit sync with Anki. That might take a few minutes depending on how many cards you have, but then you can kind of explore your deck. You can see what the interrelated ideas are and do a whole bunch of other things. So at the moment, I've just got this set to source plus tags, which means that it's going to have a link between two cards if they share at least two tags, or if they share the same source. So, I mean, that's a fairly stringent requirement. What's cool here is that you can instead do these local embeddings where essentially you capture the semantic similarity between your flashcards, and then you have links when that semantic similarity is sufficiently high. So it's actually capturing something about what makes this knowledge similar. And the idea of making this knowledge graph was really so that I could see where the clusters of ideas were and how I could connect up previously unconnected ideas. So, I mean, it's very experimental. It's one of those features that you might want to explore, you might not. That's fine, but just so that we can see it. So, for example, let's say that I want to look at cards related to math, let's say, or maybe let's do something more specific. Let's say I want cards related to complexity. I don't care what tag they have. oh, sorry, here, semantic topic, complexity. And I want it to be max 100 nodes. Okay, and then I go and apply these graph options. So now it's put together this graph. Here I have some cards. Okay, so this is on NP completeness. Here we go. This is another card about completeness. So I have a couple of cards about NP completeness and P completeness. Over here, I have, oh, these are cards on a specific paper I read about the knapsack problem. So these are, in their own little cluster. These are cards on another research paper. And so you can see that it's sort of splitting things into distinct ideas. And it's telling me like, oh, you have what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cards about NP completeness over here. So this is just something you can explore. You can click on the cards, it'll show you what they are. And there are some other things that you can do here, like you can look at well, these are, as I say, experimental features, but eventually what I'd like to work reliably is that you can look at where your weak links are and nodes that, cards that you're repeatedly getting wrong, but are sort of structurally important. And there's a bunch of network theory built into this. I'm a network theorist in my spare time, so so hence the graph. But so that's something cool that you can explore, and there'll be more on this as I develop it more. But yeah, okay. Okay, well, that's it for an introduction to Ghostwriter for Anki. I hope that you find this helpful. Feedback is more than welcome, and thank you for watching.